Blending the Family, the webinar. Hope everybody's doing a good evening. Thanks for everybody for joining us. I hope we have some fun as well as a little bit of education. If you don't know who I am Tommy Maloney, co-founder of Blending the Family.
And I'm Ann Stelling, Tommy's wife, and also co-founder of Blending the Family.
I hope we're gonna, like I said, just have a little fun next hour. And give you some information that Ann and I went through when we went through our program called Love, Limits, and Lessons from our good friend and author, Bill Corbett.
So hopefully we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the stuff that we've learned. And our main hope is that all of you, or at least some of you, will want to learn more and come join some of our classes that we'll be holding this coming year with a Love, Limits, and Lessons program.
All right, so let me get that PowerPoint back up again and we can start. All right, so let's start at the beginning. All right, so my background is I'm the author of the book 25 Tips for Divorced Dads, do some speaking, and I'm also a certified instructor on Love, Limits, and Lessons.
And I have a background, master's degree in community counseling, although I don't do counseling outside of what we do here, and also a trained parent educator as well with this curriculum. In addition to this, we have 3 kids that are also involved, and you're talking about being the author. Our youngest 2 have authored a coloring book, 10 Tips to Surviving Your Parents' Divorce. It is on our website. I'm not going to do a big push on it because I don't want this to become just a big infomercial. Yeah. But it is on our website, and if you're interested, take a look at it.
And there's our website right there, blendingthefamily.com.
There you go.
I'm a genius.
Yeah. In your own mind, honey. It's all good.
You are a little rare this week. And it's only Tuesday.
Hey.
For some of those, thought it was Friday yesterday.
I know.
All right, we're going to get right into it. And so here we go. We're talking tonight about the 3... say that word for me.
Irrefutable facts
about children. And we're actually going to kind of do them a little bit out of order, out of the, if you ever take the class, we have them 1 through 10. We're going to actually do 1, 2, and 4 tonight.
But why don't you explain what an irrefutable fact is?
I can't even pronounce the word. You expect me to know what it means. Things that are proven that you cannot disprove. You cannot disprove. See, I can't even pronounce a word, and you want me to.
You can pronounce all those little words.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
All right. And like we said, we're going to do 3 of them tonight, and on our next one, we'll do probably 3 more and 3 more, and we do have one bonus one that we're going to save for probably the last one. All right. So 3
irrefutable facts
about children.
The first one is they live only in the moment. And for any of you who have had a preschooler, you know they do not transition well. So some of the things that you'll see with kids that are going through this is, you tell them, hey, you've got 10 minutes before the bus comes. 10 minutes comes and goes, and they're still sitting there eating their cereal. Yeah, you've got to, one of the tips that we tell you, or that we encourage you to do, is to give them some cues. Give them the 2-minute warning. Give them, and kids can't, especially when they're preschoolers, can't tell time for the most part. So you've got to give them visual cues.
Like, I always remember the clocks from, I used to take photo classes. Photo classes. We always had those big timers to let us know about developing film. Mm-hmm. Back in the day when we used to develop film, I used to develop black and white film.
Oh, that is back in the day.
It was back in. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another tip that we give for people who are struggling, for especially, you'll see this a lot in the mornings when you're trying to get everybody out of the house to schools, to jobs, to preschools, to whatever you're doing. And I know what happens in our household every once in a while is my youngest daughter will get into watching her Netflix and then trying to get her to move through the day. So our big cue is don't let them get into engaging activities right before they need to leave, because it'll make it that much more difficult for them to transition.
Do you ever notice that if you don't do that, they're very forgetful?
If you don't
give them the cues, for example, lunches.
Yeah. Adults are like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got your coffee. You took your coffee with you this morning.
Yes.
I didn't have to call you to remind you about your coffee. What else? What else can we talk about? Law number 1.
One of the things, and this actually goes for many of the laws or the irrefutable facts about kids, is that you need to acknowledge them when they do what you want them to do. The whole purpose behind Love Limits and Lessons is developing a positive relationship with your children. It doesn't mean not disciplining them, but it does mean making sure that the positives outweigh the negatives, that you're filling that emotional bank up more than you're withdrawing from it.
And we're going to talk about during this presentation about getting your kids their purpose, helping find their purpose. So what you're just saying could really help parents with kids and nudging them, trying to find them, to kind of not necessarily push them, but steer them in a good purpose-driven life.
That's another book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll write that one.
It's already been written, honey.
Oh. What do I know?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Rick Warren would not be happy with you.
Oh.
All right, so what's the next law?
Well, law number 2. They don't care about cleanliness. They don't clean up after themselves. And that's one of those things where I think it doesn't matter at any age, quite honestly. They don't clean up after themselves, so set up agreements in advance about what they will do after, playing with toys.
Well, actually, I want to take a step back on this one.
Sure.
Because I know that there's going to be parents out there, especially if you have more than one kid, you'll have the one kid that is nice, neat, and clean, keeps the room clean, and you're going, well, that's not an irrefutable law. My one kid does care about cleanliness. And you are going to have some of those kids out there. We're going to talk primarily on this one about those kids that have more important things to do than clean their room. Way more pressing matters than to put away their coat in the coat closet, sort of thing.
I'd be happy if my kid would put a coat in a coat closet instead of on his floor. Also about law number 2, limit the amount of stuff they have on the floor to minimize the visual cues. It's what we were just kind of touching on, is that, especially with, I'll admit, especially with our little Connor,
we just found out we're having some problems with the PowerPoint not moving on the screen.
Is it moving now, Cece?
So we're going to continue on, but if this is a problem,
I'll go back.
Let's see.
Well, we will just continue on with.
And we'll see how this works.
This
is our first one, so there may be some technical difficulties. Thanks, Cece, for texting in on that, and hopefully we'll get this fixed.
All right. So cleanliness. Make sure that like we were just saying, set some boundaries. You don't really want to harp on them as far as needing to, I don't know, just make it the world's cleanest room. But You want to set boundaries and limits as far as what is all on the floor.
One of the big things that they have on our list is acknowledge acceptable behavior whenever and as soon as you see it. So that goes back to that other law, always acknowledging when they're doing what you want them to do. And, especially if you've got a kid that doesn't keep the room as neat as you would like them to, when they do clean it, make sure that you go in and you praise them for it. One of the big mistakes that parents will do is that they'll go in and they'll go, oh, well, it's really good, but
Yeah.
how about cleaning this up? Acknowledge what they do. And eventually, hopefully, they'll go on and they'll clean the rest of their room. Or they'll grow up and get married and it won't be your problem anymore. See? It's all good.
Well, as long as they move out of the house.
Well, that is true.
Yeah. This one goes for the younger kids. Make cleanup fun. Make a game out of it. Race them to see who could win. Well, hopefully you don't do most of the work. You have the little one do way more of the work.
Yeah, if you make it fun, kids are more apt to do it, and it's not going to seem like a chore. Another mistake that sometimes parents will do is they'll say, "Go clean your room." Well, what does that mean to you versus what does that mean to the kid? Kid's going to go in there, they're going to put their toys, in a row along the wall and say, "I cleaned my room." Well, you got to go in and at least a couple of times clean the room with them, and then so you did that when they were 4 or 5 and they got pretty good, and now they're getting sloppy and they're 8 years old. We'll go back in and do it again with them. Help them as they get older. Help them pick out how they want to decorate the room, how they want to organize the room, what color blanket do they want on their bed, so that they take ownership of the room. And that helps as well.
Yeah, that's what, after my divorce, that's what Connor and I did. We went to the furniture store and I had him choose what furniture he wanted. And then we went with white walls in the manhood.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
My oldest has probably had 3 or 4 different comforter sets because she just likes to change things up and different color schemes and that sort of thing.
Well, especially with kids, it is their room, so you want to make it enjoyable as much as they can.
Right.
I don't like painting, so therefore I just don't like painting.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
That would be you, honey.
All right, moving on. All right, we're going to go into law number 4, which is they learn by testing boundaries. Our boundaries get challenged and broken.
This is a tough one for parents because, especially when you're out in public, because you feel judged by other people. And we tend to react more to that than what the kid's really doing. The fact that they're challenging our behaviors and challenging what we're telling them to do, and it feels like they're being disrespectful, and you feel like when you're out in public you have to be that super parent, otherwise you'll get people saying things to you, and it's not nice. But they do learn by testing boundaries. One of my favorite things in life is to learn from mistakes, and the best things in life have come from making mistakes. And so you kind of want to encourage kids to take risks, but again, not necessarily always challenging your boundaries. You have to be the parent. Some of the things that they do say in this book is to establish boundaries that are clear. And that goes back to the, hey, go clean your room thing. Make sure that they understand what you're saying, have them repeat it back to you in their words, not just robotic, but so that they know and understand why you've got those boundaries.
Again, we're talking about the book by Bill Corbett, Love, Limits, and Lessons, and Ann and I are, again, both certified instructors for that. So that's why we really wanted to present this for our webinar to show you and others how how you can be hopefully a better parent. Is that right? Better parent?
The best parent you can be.
There you go. Yes.
So, what do you think about this one about document your boundaries, if necessary, with a list of rules or an agreement, Tommy?
I don't think it's a bad idea, especially if you have younger kids that are first learning how to write. I think that's a little Jedi mind trick to teach them, how to write, and at the same time, create a contract, create a what's the other word? I'm trying to remember from the Pirates of the Caribbean. An accord. We got an accord, and I think that's a good way to start.
So, and then the biggest thing, as I said, we quite often react to the fact that it's our boundaries that are getting challenged or broken more than what the kids do. And so the biggest thing is to react calmly. Take a deep breath. Yeah, let it out. And make sure that when they do test your boundaries and they go over them, that you use the consequences versus punishment. So the consequences would be, they did not turn off the TV when you asked them to turn off the TV. Okay, because you kept watching TV, we're not going to be able to watch it tomorrow night. That's a consequence, not necessarily a punishment.
Well, could you also bring up, all right, if you don't turn off the TV, or give them choices, you can either turn off the TV now or turn off the TV in 5 minutes.
That's a very good way of handling things, and that goes back to them transitioning and giving them those things. But when you say that, you can either turn off the TV now, give them a motivation as to why they want to turn off the TV now or in 5 minutes. Because, if you just say, hey, Tommy, you can turn off the TV now, or you can turn it off in 5 minutes. What would you like to do?
I wish you could see her scary face, because Ann just gave me a really scary face. I will turn off the TV. I will leave right now and go find somebody's TV and turn it off. How's that?
Yeah. Not quite what we're getting at, but okay.
Did you use that scary face with the kids?
Of course not.
No.
That is your special face.
You're so angelic.
So anyways, make sure that when you are doing this, again, be calm, level-headed, take a deep breath, take a few seconds to respond, providing everybody's safe, they're not running out into the street, and obviously maintain safety.
All right, so just a quick little mini recap of what we talked about so far. So we've talked about 3 of the 10 irrefutable facts. Wow, I said it.
Very good.
The first one was they live only in the moment. They don't transition well. Law number 2, they don't care about cleanliness. They don't clean up after themselves. And the fourth one, or technically number 3, but number 4 from the book Love, Limits, and Lessons, they learn by testing boundaries. Our boundaries get challenged and broken. All right, so the next thing, now if you're driving, I won't recommend doing this, which would be really cool if you were driving and listening to this. That would be super cool.
We would not encourage you to do this.
No. However, what we want you to do is, you don't have to be an artist. We're not going to have you put this up on your refrigerator at home unless you really want to. And just want you to simply draw a tree. Draw a tree. Just simple tree-looking tree. And the reason why we want you to do this is it's going to be part of the next phase of what we're going to talk about. And if you're listening at home, go ahead and please mute your microphone too.
All right, so if you have your tree drawn, the tree is kind of a metaphor, and what we're looking at is you've got the roots of your tree, which is how a tree gets nurtured. Then the trunk is how it grows, and then it branches out into the leaves and all the little branches. And this is what we're going to talk about and understanding what discipline methods you use now and how we're going to kind of change that around and maybe come up with some new disciplinary methods. And again, more consequences than punishment. And building relationships versus the strict conflict that sometimes happens with stronger, more authoritative types of discipline.
Part of this exercise too is I like to always use Dr. Wayne Dyer's quote of thinking from the end. So we kind of want you to think from the end as far as how have you created your discipline methods, and what we are going to try and strive to get at is to maybe sort of change those discipline methods and use some new ideas and other tools in order to help you in the long run.
So, oh, we do have one person who's driving and listening.
Excellent.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, thanks for listening, Chris. Now mute your phone. Still love you, brother. And both hands on the wheel, Chris. Don't be driving and trying to draw a tree. All right. So everybody have their tree?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yes.
So the first thing we want you to do is go ahead and, for those of you who can do this, record some of the methods of discipline that you use at the bottom of your tree. So below the tree where you would have the roots. Because
this is where, if you really think about a real tree, that's the strongest part of the tree is going to be the roots. And this is where your discipline methods are really going to need to be, strong and sturdy, as well as nourishing. Thank you. That's perfect. And so you want to make sure that, to use your word, nourishing, you want to make sure that that's where you spend a lot of focus on. All right. So I hope everybody has their tree, but the biggest thing here is to remember that your discipline, you really want that to be, as what we're just talking about, the 3 irrefutable facts, but what we really want out of this is for you to take the nourishment and build it from the bottom and work your way up instead of the other way around.
Okay, so since we would normally in class ask a few people to volunteer what they would have written down in the roots of their tree, and we're not able to do that here. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some of our own discipline techniques that we used prior to going to this class and learning how to do this. The first thing was that I would use, now I come from a long family of
a Long Island family?
Not a Long Island family, no. I come from a family where guilt was definitely used a lot. And so I used that on my kids quite a bit before learning that that's not really the best way to do it. It's also as a manager, learned that that's not a good way to motivate my people either. When you make them feel guilty, you're eating away at a kid's self-esteem as it is. And guilt just lays the blame on kids when it's not always, there are things that are definitely their responsibility, their behaviors, but when you're using guilt, that's more of the, oh, poor is me because you don't love me enough sort of thing.
It's also like Catholic guilt.
Yeah, yeah. So what was one of the techniques that you had on yours, Tommy?
I was very, very bad at not listening. I went, especially with Connor, I would just not listen to them. I would just simply send them right to timeout
Right.
without even, really thinking about it. And, there are several times where, you go back and I got to find this quote I just saw from Russell Crowe last night. And one of the things was, again, I didn't sit back and just simply listen to him. I just sort of put him in
Right.
judgment and put him in timeout. And so that was the biggest thing. Here it is. From Russell Crowe. He was on Charlie Rose last night. Appreciate your regrets.
That's true.
And I kind of do appreciate the regrets of first, being a single dad, because I learned, again, learn what not to do.
Right.
However, because of learning what not to do, it really got me focused on how to be a better dad and how to take the same situation and be able to take a deep breath, take a step back, and somewhat analyze what's going on. And not just analyze what's going on with me internally, but what's going on with him at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And, don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to let your kids know that you've made a mistake, because you're human too, and that's also going to set them up for feeling safer to come to you and talk to you when you really want them to come and talk to you later when they're older and there's bigger, more serious things. You want them to be able to come in and talk to you about certain things.
Well, it kind of goes back to the whole, and I know we've had our struggles with the cleaning of the room, and at times, does it really matter if their room is clean? But it's just like you were just saying, those times where, let's say, one of your kids is at a situation where they don't want to be in and shouldn't be in, wouldn't you rather have them call you than you, for years, hammering them about how clean their room needs to be?
Right.
So, again, the tree metaphor really helps, because how do you want your kids to grow? I mean, how do you want them to, love you and love you back, and at the same time be able to be responsible and be able to be a good citizen?
And so, what we want you to do when you're looking at your tree and you're reflecting on,
except you, Chris, you're driving.
Later, when you can do this, and you're reflecting on the disciplinary techniques that you're using now, and then later on when you learn other disciplinary techniques, what you want to reflect on is if the discipline you're using will help your kids develop the characteristics that you want them to, and again, it's going back to helping them find their purpose and creating that relationship with them. So are your disciplinary techniques really helping to build those characteristics that you want in your kids? Which then leads us right into a great segue into the things that you really want for your children.
Well, right before we go into that, I just want to touch on what you just said. And it just stems from, your household. It stems from, not harping on the little things, like, pick your battles.
Right.
You're not going to win the war every day. Just pick your battles. And so, I know it's difficult in the heat of the moment. Your boundaries are being tested, and you're just being tested. And it's one of those times where, you just got to take literally, you got to take a step back and a deep breath and go, all right, is this argument worth it?
Right.
Not always is it worth it. And so, again, like you're saying, a great segue is to, things we really want for our kids. And, this is what Ann and I really want about, this webinar today is, how can we serve you? How can we serve your kids as well? Oh.
Slide.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
That's why I pay you the big bucks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that we have in our class to get you started on what you really want for your kids, and they're pretty universal, what most parents want for their kids. For example, we want them to know how to give and receive love. It's really important. So going back to the cleanliness, if you're constantly harping on them to clean your room, and every day it's a constant battle, it's hard for them to learn that give and receive love. Also, if you're using a lot of guilt in your disciplinary thing, and that guilt is eating away at their self-esteem, it's hard to love other people when you don't love yourself.
I'm gonna I want to look at this one. No, I'm gonna save that one because we're gonna talk about that. Oh, this one's hard in the sense because of personal experience, but it's I want them, or I want them to be peaceful.
Right.
And I guess it's kind of hard because I understand being a peacemaker,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, what I want for our kids to still be peaceful, but at the same time be able to stand up for themselves.
Right.
Because that goes back to what you're saying about having good self-esteem. If somebody wrongs you, don't be afraid to say, that wasn't nice.
It's not okay.
It's not okay.
And when we're talking about these things, I want to be clear that, it's not that we're Disneyland parents. That's not the gist of all of this. And it's not that we're never going to have conflict with our kids, because we are, and that's part of the kids' development. What we're hoping that we teach them is how to talk it out versus doing something else with their anger, striking out or holding it all in and becoming sick from their anger. We want them to be able to resolve conflicts and to communicate to the best of their ability. So with that, we also want them to take the risks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and to learn to fail. I was talking about watching a show. I was listening to some actress, and she was saying her best memory is every night her dad would ask her, what did she fail at today? And then they'd celebrate whatever it was that they failed at. And the whole purpose and what she learned from that wasn't that it's okay to be a slacker, but it's okay to try, because that's what they were really celebrating, is that you tried something new. We want our kids to be creative. We want them to take risks. We want them to put themselves out there. And so it's okay if you're not always successful.
To use some of a sports analogy, in hockey we talked about if you're not falling, you're not trying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay, because I would always tell the kids, you fall, what the greatest thing is? Getting back up.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I think that's where these, I don't know what to call it, snow plow parents and helicopter parents. And there's so many different ones. And one of the biggest things I see, and my biggest concern with kids, is that we as parents are too afraid to let our kids fail.
Mm-hmm.
We want to put them in bubble wrap and just not let them leave.
But then we also want to be able to go out and brag that our kids are the best at whatever. And, and that's not always...
True.
That it's awesome to be able to brag on your kids. I know I do it plenty of times. But we're talking about those parents that, every time you're like, oh, my kid did this. Oh, well, my kid did this.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of pressure on the kids.
Well, and at the same time, you get into those conversations with not just parents but adults, and I call them the toppers. Mm-hmm. And it stems from the kids when, maybe in a household where one kid would start something, another kid would have to top them, and
okay.
And it just carries on to adulthood. And I'm sorry, I have to walk away from some of those people.
Well, it comes from not having that self-esteem, and so that you're always trying to build your self-esteem by being better than other people.
Right.
And that can be tough for some people, especially if that was the way they were raised, was that they're always being minimized or yelled at or, guilted into doing things.
What about the flip side to that? If they were constantly told how great they are, and then right. My mom and dad told me I'm great, so therefore I'm great, and therefore when I'm in a conversation, I got to let you know I'm great. Ask me and I'll tell you.
There's that too, but I still think even those people, there's still some self-esteem issues, because even though everybody, their parents told them they're great, so therefore they must be great, there's still that, am I really that great?
Right.
And so I got to prove to you I'm that great. You can't be humble about it.
I can't remember who I was listening to, one of my motivational tapes, and they're talking about, telling your kids you can grow up to be president someday. And in the book they said, as you're looking at your couch potato kid who can't get off the couch, and you're telling them they're going to be president someday.
Yeah. That's great for that kid who wants to be in politics, but
got to get off the couch.
Yeah, they do.
All right, how about one more?
All right, and we want them to celebrate their present moments. So, and actually we just had that sermon this past Sunday at church. And what I really took away from that was that one line, there is no future in the past. And what that's really talking about is, getting kids to understand that game that they just lost, and they goofed and they turned around and shot the ball into their own goal, is that moment.
Yeah.
Move on. You're not going to live in the past, live in the future, and every second is a gift, and every second can be as good as you make it.
There's a quote from Tony Robbins, does that too. He says, the past doesn't equal the future. But as a kid, as a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, 13-year-old kid, to them, that was their world.
Yeah.
Like last night you saw me talking with Connor. They were taking the standardized test, which save that for another show. And he was kind of upset with himself. He felt like he screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
I said, did you give it your best? Your honest to best? Yes, he said. And that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, again, in his little world, that's crushing because, and I get it, because it makes an impact for next year for his classes. But, if you just let them know, hey, you gave it your best, and try, and if they can try to let it go, which is, it's hard because they don't understand at times of things that they can't control.
Right.
And it just drives them bonkers.
Right. It is hard when everything is such instant gratification and you feel like you have so much control and you really don't.
Right. It's a microwave world.
Yep.
I want my food now.
Yes.
All right. Find their purpose. So that's one of the things we just going to probably touch on more than anything, and that is helping your kids find their purpose. And it's not going to be, oh my gosh, I want my kid to be a doctor or a lawyer and all that. No, it's them trying to discover who they are. It's going to be them trying to find some self-discovery, so to speak.
Right.
I know for all three of our kids, it's fun to step back and watch and have them figure out. Well, prime example, Becca, love to death.
Yeah.
Every other week, if I'm taking her to gymnastics and a song comes on, that week, that is her favorite song.
That's her jam.
That's her jam.
Yes.
And that's what kids are going to have their moments where they're going to go, when I grow up, I'm going to be a baseball player. When I grow up, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And that's great. Help them discover other things.
Right.
Like, again, to use Becca as an example, she went to the local food bank and volunteered, which is wonderful. If you can have your kids spend time in a role to volunteer and give back and be in service, they will find things that will trigger their passion, and maybe that passion will turn into their purpose in life.
Right. All of our kids actually do volunteer and are very giving, which is a great thing, and we try to encourage that. But as far as finding their purpose, meaning going out, trying a lot of different things, not necessarily starting and quitting things, but going out and trying things and finding what are you good at and what are you not good at, and being okay with what you're good at and being just as okay with what you're not good at. I was just thinking my oldest definitely had a career plan since she was very young that she was going to go into medicine, and she's graduating in another couple of weeks, and that's exactly what she's doing. She's going into medicine, and that I've encouraged her to do things that support that and to help her explore that, including her dad is in medicine, and so encouraging her to have that relationship with him so that he can impart his experience and wisdom on her with that.
Well, and I think a lot of that, I'm going to say, shines back to you because you do a lot of community service, and I think it's vital in a household. I think it's really.
But you have to find what's good for your family.
Right. But I still think it will help the kids one way or the other. To use our hockey organization, they'll do events to help raise money for not just the team, but they'll do events to help others out as well.
Right.
And so I think that's also a good way to help kids, find their purpose in life and find what's going to drive them. And I mean, I'm amazed. You'll see kids at very young ages, like 8 years old, and they know their purpose, and they'll be on that path, and they'll find that path or create that path.
Right.
More importantly, they'll create that path, and hopefully others will follow as well.
I think what's really important as parents is that we know what our purpose is. Besides being their parents and being their biggest cheerleaders, what are we passionate about, and letting our kids see what our passions are so that we can, and they see how important that is. Like how you do your Toastmasters and you've done your speeches and you've brought Connor to see that, and you've actually included him on some of your keynote speaking. So, it gives the kids an idea of, life doesn't have to be that 9 to 5 sitting at a desk. It could be more than that. Even if it is partially that, it can be more than that, and that they can have their own identity through that.
Right. Yeah. And that brings up a great point, is that, like you said, share, what are your habits, hobbies? What are your hobbies or habits? Hopefully they're good habits. Like you going to the gym, so proud of you tonight.
Oh, thanks.
I didn't. But sharing your hobbies with your kids as well.
Right. And what's important, and this is where your hobbies and your habits are where your values are, and this is how you impart your values, and it's not just a do this and don't do that. This is why we feel that this is important in our lives. And whatever it is for your family, embrace that. Include the kids as much as you possibly can so that they can decide for themselves at some point what parts they like and what parts they don't like.
That's true. All right. 3 things you're going to do differently. So we've been talking for almost 45 minutes, just under 45 minutes, 44 minutes. And we've covered a lot of ground here. And I want to also say, if you want the slides, hi Duke. If you go out to our website, sign up for our newsletter information, I will send you the slides. How's that?
Very cool.
And
when you're going out to our website, give us some feedback. Let us know, how did we do? Did we cover things well? Did we not cover things well? Did we chatter too much? Did we not chatter enough? sort of thing.
So 3 things you will begin doing differently at home starting tonight. Again, you can write this down on your piece of paper with your tree, and what are 3 things that you'll begin doing differently at home? And I'm just going to go back to one of the things I wrote down when Ann and I first took this class, the Love Limits and Lessons class, which was more listening, less talk.
Right. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yes.
Listen twice as much as you talk. Some of the stuff that I had thought about was, again, not using the guilt. And also not fighting over the clean room as much. Letting them have their space the way they would like their space, not necessarily how I want their space. And maybe having some compromise with that. And that, when I say that, I know there's going to be parents out there who are going to absolutely freak and they cannot deal with their kids' room being that messy. Okay, fine. If that's a battle you want to fight, just understand that fighting that battle constantly is a negative versus building that relationship. Now, if you're going at it from a totally different, all right, you're working with the kids, you're helping them clean the room, if you've got that kind of time, awesome, and you're making it a positive experience, awesome. But if you can, let them have their room to themselves. Shut the door. That works wonders. You don't have to see the room, just shut the door.
I prefer wearing blinders and eye patches.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something over your head, but I was like, all right.
Eye patches will work.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see if we can do this. I'm going to do that. Let's do this. We don't need to know about my Toastmasters there. All right. If you are listening and you want to type in a question, go ahead and type in a question. And we'll just also mention if you need any additional information for us or from us, you can simply email us at info@blendingthefamily.com. That's info@blendingthefamily.com. Check out our website, blendingthefamily.com. And also on our website, you can also check out our podcasts, which are on iTunes and Stitcher Radio as well. Well, do you have anything to say before we
don't
close up shop? And
maybe put out there if you're in the Greeley area. One of the
that's
things,
Colorado.
And that's in Colorado. Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
That's why I get paid the big bucks here.
Yep, exactly. So in the near future, what we're going to try to do, speaking of podcasts, is have a live audience. And we're working on maybe in the next a month or 2 down the road, if we get enough interest for this, trying to decide where we're going to have it and do a podcast with a live audience and come with your questions so we can maybe answer them. That'd be awesome.
Cece just said this was great. This was the best webinar I've ever. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, no paraphrasing.
All right. This was extremely helpful, and I think it can definitely be directed toward other relationships too, not just with the kiddos. So thank you for that.
That's actually very dead on, Cece. A lot of the stuff that we talk about are just basically relationship skills, and you can use similar skills with different relationships, be it parent to kid, parent to parent, parents to other family members, community members, bosses, that sort of thing. So yeah.
You said bosses. My
bosses, subordinates. I hate that word, but in that context. But yes.
Well, yeah, that's all I got. Again, blendingfamily.com is the website, and if you go to our website and sign up for the info, I will send you the the PowerPoints, and I'll send you also some other information from Love Limits and Lessons, and yeah.
Check in more and see what we're going to be doing in the next couple of months.
Go to iTunes, go to Stitcher Radio, especially if you can, go to iTunes and listen to the podcast, and please leave a rating and a review. That would be so cool of you to do that.
All right. Till next time.
Thank you again for listening. We hope to hear from you, and we will do this again shortly.
So